And welcome to another GMT driving school video. In this one we're going to look at how to get better at changing gear and getting the timing right and how that changes under different conditions. So it's about mastering the clutch and the gears, making sure it's appropriate, safe and economical at all times. So once you've been taught how to use the clutch appropriately, i.e. softly and slowly with the timing of 1, 2, 3, we can start looking at how to independently work out when to change gear. So I always like to start off with the 10 mile an hour rule. Now this is going to work in my current car and most other diesel cars, but in a petrol car it's going to differ by about 1000 revs, so it's worth noting that. So we look at the speed and gear ratios. So from 0, i.e. standstill, to 10 mile an hour, we use first gear. Then we change into second at about 10, 11 mile an hour. And then we keep going up in increments of 10 miles per hour. What that's going to do, it's going to keep the car in the rev range of eco there on the left. So between 1 and 2000. That's basically 2 to 3000 in a petrol car. So this style of driving is very much going to match your inner town driving, where we're not looking to put a lot of acceleration into the car and things are looking to be dead smooth, like on your driving test for instance. This will of course change when the needs change, such as uphill or getting onto a motorway or slip road, something like that. But this is a great way to save a lot of petrol over time, and it's a great way to have a nice soft smooth drive. So let's take a look at that in action then. Watch the needle on the left and how that matches the speeds to the right. So there's first gear up to about 12, 13 mile an hour. Shift into second, then you can see the rev needle going from 1000 up to about 2000. There's another gear change. So what we're doing there is keeping that needle, that left needle, the rev counter or the tachometer in that lovely eco zone, saving lots of petrol, nice and smooth. So in the next example, you're going to see how to use the car a little bit differently. By putting your foot a little bit further on the gas pedal, you'll be taking the revs right up past 2000, and that's going to put the speed on a lot quicker. Very useful for maybe going uphill or merging on a motorway, for instance. In this little example, I just want to do some myth busting from some of my learners, where there's often a misconception that if you change up a gear, say from 2 to 3, 3 to 4, that the car's going to speed up as well. That's definitely not the case. That would take some gas pedal to go in as well. So I want to kind of get rid of that myth by showing an example of keeping the car at 25 mile an hour but going through the gear. So I start in second, then go all the way to sixth gear. And what I want you to pay attention to is the rev needle on the left. Notice how that's the thing that changes but not the speed. So really gear changing is a choice depending on what the environment demands. So if you're uphill, you need the rev needle to be a little higher because you're battling gravity. If you're going downhill, it's vice versa. It's the other way around. So I'm speeding the car up now at 25 mile an hour in second gear, which is pretty much appropriate. You'll see the rev needle going slightly above the 2000. That's okay. You're using a little bit more petrol. But let's see what happens when we go into third gear. That needle's going to come down by about 500 revs. So that's really comfortable for third gear there now. Well, we know that because it's in between 20 and 30. Now there's fourth gear, so it's starting to labour a little bit. The needle's down to 1000, so going up a hill would really struggle. Fifth gear's in, you can notice the vibration of the camera. The car's shaking now. In sixth gear, the car wants to stall. So ideally, when we work out the gear, we just look at the speed, 25 mile an hour, ideally third gear. So the next section of this video, we're going to look at how to make your footwork a little bit better, a little bit more usable and smoother. So when you first start in the car, you'll be shown how we use the clutch, pausing at the bite, and then bringing it up very slowly at a count of 1, 2, 3, and then putting the gas on. That's reasonably useful to start out. It teaches you the basics of how to use the pedals. But then I look at how to speed that situation up, so you start using the gas pedal a little bit more. So I've kind of differentiated it between a basic learner's pull away and speeding up drill, to an intermediate, to a more advanced where we're putting the gas pedal right down to the floor to get up to 60, 70 mile an hour quite quickly. So think of it in a way of, see, a lot of my students are looking to go from phase 1 to phase 2. I've also timed the situation as well. So the slow pull away takes about 40 seconds or so to get to 30. The intermediate takes about 12 seconds and the advanced takes about 5 seconds. I wouldn't want you using the advanced method all the time because you're basically going from 0 to 30 in 4 seconds, and that's far too aggressive. But have a little look, see if you can identify where you're at with your footwork and where to go next. A lot of my students know this is coming out, and I think they're ready for that second stage. So in this first example, this is kind of where you start when you start your journey of driving, and that is looking at one pedal at a time. So you can see here we're just holding the bite and the speed's gently creeping up, and as the clutch comes fully up and engaged, we go into the gas pedal and start taking that speed up. So by doing that, it's perfectly smooth, it's perfectly safe, but you're not going to be able to get out onto heavy traffic or into gaps where it's more usual driving conditions. So it's dead slow, but it's where we need to start to teach you. Otherwise it can feel a little bit daunting trying to speed the car up dead fast. Now, unlike the last example, this one we're going to start using the gas pedal with the clutch. So now the clutch is at bite, starting to put a little bit of gas in. And watch how quickly the speed can rise. Again, the reason people don't do this from the off is because it feels a little bit fast when you're pulling out of junctions or onto a new road. And that's totally acceptable, and you will gain the confidence over time for this. In this last example, this is what you'd need to use to, say, get onto a 60 or 70 road from a junction. So it's lots of gas and really pushing that pedal all the way to the floor, staying in the gear a long time. So in this last example, this kind of completes the full picture of the clutch work and how we use it differently for different scenarios. So we've looked at normal driving, where you'd use that little bit of gas pedal and get up to 30 at a very normal, safe speed. We've looked at an aggressive style, where you might need that to get out on a T-junction with really bad visibility or high speeds. Say there might be a hill to your right and you have to get out and you really can't see or do anything about that, so you'll need to get away pretty prompt. And then this style, this is just an example of a maneuver where the clutch very rarely gets up past halfway, where we're just putting a tiny bit of power in the wheels so the car goes dead slow and we can get our steering just perfect. So if you look at the footwork here, the right foot's over the brake, that's ready to stop the car if anything moves, and the clutch is really low. I call this feathering, where you're coming in and out of the power just very gently. This will get you on your drive without blasting into your own garage or anything like that. So here's how to put together that footwork drill that we've just looked at in a real world situation. So on this one, we're just looking at a reasonably busy roundabout. There's nothing difficult about it. It's a small to medium size. So on this one, we're just looking at getting that gas on a little bit, just a little prod, maybe a centimetre's worth, and that's going to get us away out of that danger zone from our right pretty quick, and nothing that you can't handle with the steering. And you'll be able to check all your mirrors and put your signal on adequately. So we're not talking about going fast, we're just talking about nice and smooth, nice and safe, no stalling, and that's how to do it. So in this last example, we're going to look at how to do the more advanced fast pull away. This is a 60 mile an hour road on a bend, so we can't dilly-dally and stay slow on this one. We've got to get up to speed. So I've set quite a bit of gas, come up with quite a hard bite, and as soon as the opportunity arises like that, drop the handbrake and start putting the gas on reasonably firm. If you notice the revs, they're coming right up towards a 3,500, and that gets us up to speed really quickly, nice and safely, no stalling. and trying to fit into traffic. Sometimes you just have to have that ability and confidence. Okay, in this last part, we're going to look at the slowing down drill, something that learners get wrong a lot, and it takes a good few lessons to start getting used to how we use the information in front of us to kind of work out what speed and what gear we need, when to put the clutch in. And that's often a question I ask to students and they don't know the answer. When do you put the clutch down when you're slowing down? So that's what we want to look at here. So what you're going to notice is we're at about 50 mile an hour, about 1,500 revs. So the first thing we should do to maintain good car control is brake only. That way we're getting all four brakes going in and engine braking at the same time. And the answer to the question, when do you put the clutch down? When the gear's finished. And when the gear's finished, it's about 1,000 revs. Okay, so we've maximized the engine braking all the way down to 1,000 revs. That's the time to get rid of that gear. So we'll put the clutch in and keep braking. Once you've got the speed you want, you fit the gear to it. So it's that matching idea of, say, 10 mile an hour second gear. Bring the clutch back up and you've got the right speed for the right gear and a very safe slowdown procedure. Let's take a look at that. So you can see here we're going into the brakes nice and gentle. That speed starts to drop. Look at the revs as well. They're dropping down towards the 1,000, so we know the gear's about to run out now. So it's clutch in time, and then keep the braking going and drop into second gear as the speed comes right down. Then we can let off the brakes and bring the clutch up at a similar time. So there you go. So next time you're out in the car, you might want to try and find out roughly where you are with your footwork and how to take it to that next level. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like it, subscribe it, add some comments, ask some questions. These are hard to do, 3 cameras syncing them all up, so things can be a little bit difficult to get out when I promise them. So sorry about that. Any requests for next video, just ask away and I'll get that done for you. See ya.